neither my parents went to university, my sister didn't go to university, nobody in my family, extended family, nobody went to university.
Yeah.
I mean, some students have said, you're not exactly like I thought university professors would be. I said, is that a fact? Like, really, how should somebody know when they are 18 or 19 what they want to do? Like, how should that actually happen?
What's the thing that you're most proud of?
Most proud?
The most proud of, yeah.
Oh, my son, of course.
And you go to the gym.
No, actually, right now I'm mostly lifting. I've had a layoff from running, and I didn't bike during the winter.
Yeah, you said like you worked out with your student. How does that feel?
Oh, right. Did I see him yesterday? What, today's Wednesday? Here.
Yeah, I want to work out with my professor too.
Cool. I mean, it's just as...
Do you take any substances like pre-workouts or maybe
No.
like protein shakes?
No, I'm pretty simple that way. I try to be pretty mindful with protein.
Recording. So yeah. First, let me introduce our guest, Raymond Grinnell, our professor at UTSC. So currently we're having Math 34 class with him, and yeah, thank you for coming to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and can you briefly introduce yourself for our audience?
Yeah, my name is Raymond Grinnell. I'm an associate professor of mathematics in the teaching stream. I just finished 20 years of working at UTSC. That's the second time. I was a student here, a long time ago.
So
we were all much younger.
So you've had like 5 generations of students. Like,
I could say that. Yeah.
Wow.
I never thought about it that way. You're counting quicker than I am. Yeah. And the first time I was here was 1981 to 85 as a student.
Wow.
We were all much younger.
Was that the year when it was open? Like the
No,
UTSC?
UTSC opened around the time I did, early 60s.
Wow.
Yeah. So you may know that our campus is celebrating 60 years. It's the 60th anniversary of UTSC coming up. So that would mean I'm in around that vintage.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let me first start with the introduction questions about your background and personal journey. And the first question is, can you tell me about more yourself, maybe your life journey briefly, your age?
Right. So I'm 61. And my beginning years that I have memory is not too far from here in Scarborough at sort of Markham Road and Ellesmere area. I was there in the early 70s. And my parents moved, and I ended up on a small farm outside Markham, Ontario, just where Markham Stouffville Hospital is, for a couple of years. That was in the early 70s, and then my parents moved in to Markham, not too far from the intersection of Markham Road and Highway 7. And some of your listening audience may identify with that, how Markham has changed. So to a large extent, I say my back home would be Markham, and I lived there, went to high school there with my parents and my sister. My first 2 university experiences was when I was living in Markham. And then I graduated from my master's degree, and then it was the first time I left home.
I heard that you went to
20,
America.
23.
Is that true?
Eventually. No, I left Markham in 86 to go off to Kingston, Ontario, to study for 5 years, and then more adventures after that. Lots more adventures.
Wow, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it was. Life can be very interesting.
Yeah.
Unpredictable too.
Yeah. Where were you born, and how was your childhood?
Interesting. I mean, there's my mom, my dad, my sister, who's 22 months younger than myself. Average in every way. I mean, neither my parents went to university, my sister didn't go to university, nobody in my family, extended family, nobody went to university. They were average.
So you're
people.
First generation student?
Yes, I was.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I am right now.
Isn't that something? Yeah, an awful lot of our students are. An awful lot of your colleagues would be first generation students.
Yeah. Was there anything like extraordinary about your childhood that you remember? And you say
extraordinary. I don't think perhaps now upon reflection that that I'm a parent, and I can remember my parents being my age. In fact, I still kind of have conversations with my mom, and I did with my dad when he was living, about, when they were my age, etc. Um, a lot of freedom.
A lot of
Yeah,
freedom.
my parents did not they did not impose an awful lot on my sister and myself, and that I do appreciate, and very open. My parents were, and I was very close to my parents. I'm still very, very close to my mom. Very open, very receptive, very discussive.
That's what I like about like Canadian and Western culture, because like their parents are more close to their children, and like they don't hide anything. They just talk whatever they like feel,
Mm,
and they just express themselves to their parents. They feel like it's like your friend and anything. But like in our culture, we have that certain type of like the distance between your parents, and you gotta like certainly respect your parents, and then at the same time like you don't find yourself like talking to your parents about your maybe like some personal issues and anything. You know what I mean?
I do. In fact, I reflect on that now. My son just turned 17, and not surprisingly, at times I want to be his best pal, but I
Yeah.
recognize this is not really the right thing. His best friends will be his best friends of his own choosing. So I find sometimes it's a bit of a challenge to be very mindful of this,
Mm.
just to find the right balance. If in fact I do, between being his dad, being
Mm.
a parent, being his friend, quote unquote,
Mm.
and that's not always easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps not unlike the role or the disposition you might see that I have when we're in math class.
Yeah.
I mean, some students have said, you're not exactly like I thought university professors would be. I said, is that a fact? Really? That's probably a manifestation of the affection that I have, like for you and your colleagues and the work that I do. And also being in this environment, it's not a whole lot different than when I was like yourself. And I often ask, how would I have liked my profs to be? So I
Mm.
try to wrestle with that and
Yeah.
present myself in a way that is not bad and maybe even good.
Yeah.
Maybe even good.
Yeah. What did you want to be when you were young? Like so
What did I
like
want to be?
yeah.
So young, like a child,
Yeah.
like elementary
Yeah.
school.
Elementary school and like
I think at
at
one
that age.
time, I maybe wanted to be sort of an architect type. My dad was
Architect.
had that in his history. At one time in high school, I wanted to be an athlete.
Hmm.
I enjoyed sport. Um, I didn't, to tell you the truth, to tell anyone the truth, I didn't really project, certainly in high school, what I wanted to be. I think I was too busy with the present.
Oh.
I was
Okay.
busy with my subjects. I was busy with my sports. I was busy with that little thing called social life, and family, etc. So I didn't really project into the future too much. No, I didn't really. So not much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some children, like especially when they're young, when they're in elementary school, like they dream about like being like the working with the astronomy and other stuff, or maybe like business,
Hmm.
so and they end up being like in a medical school, or maybe like in the medicine
Hmm.
field. So yeah, that's something interesting about
Hmm.
people. And so you said you've been teaching math for like 20 years, or is that
At this
longer?
school.
At this school. So how
Hmm.
about like the in general, if we take like how many years you've been teaching math?
So my last degree finished in 1991.
1991. Wow.
Hmm.
Interesting. So
According to arithmetic, that's 33 years ago. That's more than half my life, and probably three-quarters of my adult life. Yeah, about three-quarters of my adult life. And
so
20 years of that is being here, and then I was all over.
and you started teaching like the 33 years ago, like
Yeah,
right after
when
when
I
you.
finished my doctorate, I started teaching, and I
But
went.
how about like your high school or maybe like university? Have you started like tutoring people?
I did. Yes, thanks for asking that. So when I was towards my latter years of high school, grade 12 and grade 13, I
Oh,
tutored people.
wow.
I would get in my car and I would go to their house and sit with them, just like this. ask if you can see everything that we're working on, and that was very enjoyable. I got to meet students, their parents quite often. We'd sit and we'd work in the kitchen or off in the dining room, and
Wow. At such a young
I
age.
remember some of my very beginning thinkings about teaching and interacting with students started when I was, 17, 18, 19, when I was
Wow.
18 when I was in high school.
Wow,
You know,
that's interesting.
Yes, it was. I don't know if I had the thought to cast to the future that might be what I might like to do. But towards the end of high school, I started to think I might like to be a teacher.
Mhm.
So when you asked earlier about when I was younger what I might like to do, I started to crystallize some ideas towards the latter part of high school. I either thought perhaps as an athlete or perhaps as a teacher,
Wow.
but a teacher in high school. But
so
that changed.
Yeah, you already had like something in your mind before.
I had
like,
something in
graduating.
my. That's a good thing. I had something
That's
in my mind.
actually a great thing
I
because
had
like
something in
most
my
of our
mind.
like especially me because when I graduated high school I didn't know what I'm gonna do and I ended up applying to computer science program at
Mhm.
UTSC. Unfortunately, I just got the acceptance for media and arts faculty.
Mhm.
So and I'm right now I'm applying to management like which is a bit weird. And I just realized that I want to be a marketing specialist like in the future. And it was just here like coming to Canada as an international student and
Mhm.
figuring out like what works for me. And I talked to my friends for international students and to international students, and yeah, that's how I realized.
If you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
in your experience so far at our school, at your school, um, have things happened during your experience for which your experience is informing you more of what you might like to do? I often say this for students, particularly if I'm at events where students are thinking about discussing what they might like to do in their future. And I often ask, well, really, how should somebody know when they are 18 or 19 what they want to do? Like, how should that actually happen? I say, we kind of have some broad ideas. You might think, I don't want to be in engineering. I do like humanities. I do like management. I don't like math. But I often offer to students, let your undergraduate experience inform you, because the people that you meet undoubtedly are interesting. Perhaps the profs that you meet give you some insights, and you all use this to help come to some kind of ideas about what you might like to do.
Yeah.
And I often say, you're probably under 40, so you have all the time in the world. You do. You have all the time in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
I do. You do. You both do. All the time in the world to think about. And it is not necessarily the case, and probably not the case, that you would end up doing one thing.
Yeah.
Probably not.
I'm actually so happy to find out that like what I want to do in life, like in general. And like when I started actually learning marketing here, like when I talked to people who are actually taking marketing courses, it was so interesting for me. And then I said, this is what I want to do in the like for the rest of my life. And it was actually so like useful for me because like if I didn't come here, I wouldn't just realize that I would just do business and other stuff.
Yeah, something I have reflected on in my own life, and I offer students to just reflect on it, is to be mindful of using that expression, rest of my life. Who knows where our paths are going to take us?
Oh,
Who
that's true.
knows when you meet people or groups of people or get to know yourself better, our thoughts about things are always fluid. They can always change.
Yeah.
I think most people that I know outside of my work have not found something that they thought they would like to do, perhaps when they were in university, and actually committed their life to doing that. Of course, professional athletes have, people in other types of quote-unquote professions. Most people that I know who have worked for numbers of years, they do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And they let life speak to them as to how they decide what they might like to do, etc. And I offer that thought too. To say, well, rest of my life, and I trust you guys are under 25. That's a lot of life ahead of you. A lot of life.
Yeah.
You just never know when goodness and other people and situations and living life will inform you about what you might really like to do, even for a short period of time.
Yeah. True. And that's a really interesting question. Were you born a mathematician or did you develop this skill through your work?
No, I'm anybody that knows me would know that I'm not a very capable mathematician, really, in the big scheme of things. Most of the time, I can't believe still that I work here, knowing the reputation, the mathematics reputation, the reputation of my department, the reputation of our university in Ontario, in Canada, around the world. Nobody has not heard of the University of Toronto. And at times, I still can't wrap my head around that I work here,
Wow.
that I contribute to students. I trust I do. contribute to students. In the big scheme of things, no, I would not call myself a capable mathematician at all. I've had some success, mostly on account of really just two things, and that is, working very hard and just being very curious. I was never what I would call a very good mathematician.
So you worked your way to mathematics, and
yeah, and that was fueled mostly just by curiosity. And as to whether people are innately curious about my subject or innately curious about any kinds of things, or they kind of prime that, I think it's a bit of both, a bit of nurturing and a bit of natural. Yeah.
What challenges did you face during your academic year, and how did they shape your approach to teaching and research? Like, especially when you're teaching and you just realize that this does not work here. Like, for example, for students, maybe, right?
Well, in the teaching realm, I more definitely subscribe to the idea that it is maybe not as important exactly what it is that's being taught, but it's how students feel during the process of being taught. Maybe you have reflections, because we've been working on our course together.
Yeah.
I think my role of teaching here is an interesting one, in the sense that there are a lot of students for whom, in their top 100 favorite things, you would not find our subject. And yet there are other students for which in their top 3 things you would find our subject. Some students I teach, they want to go on to be mathematicians.
Wow.
So to be flexible, to be sensitive to those different groups of people, I think is very important. Very sensitive. So the disposition, the way that our Math 834 class would run, what happens in our lectures, what happens during office hours, this is even the interaction with students, this is a different kind of experience than students that I would teach, interact with, for whom it may be the case that some of them are aiming for graduate school.
Wow.
It's being sensitive to the people you're working with.
Yeah, that's actually... And
I think I may be more adept at doing that. That's probably called maturity. Maybe I'm getting some. Maybe I'm getting some. Maybe.
Yeah. You say your father is a businessman. Like, what was his reaction when you...
My dad... Did I say that?
I've heard that...
Yeah, no, my dad worked for... He ended his career at the TTC, actually. But he was in engineering and construction. So he was in the business of overseeing the design of new subway platforms, the refurbishment of subway platforms. So all of the engineering, the concrete business.
Yeah.
And my mom was kind of in tech admin. It was not the case that I sort of came home one day and said, you know what, I want to be a mathematician. That was not the case. It was sort of an evolution type process. My undergraduate degree here was in mathematics. I went to York to study mathematics. It became clear that I was very interested in that subject. I wasn't making a complete mess of it. I had this deep down feeling that I had not yet seen enough of mathematics. And I guess from what I'd seen sort of from outside of academia, I realized I didn't want to be in that. And I deeply loved my subject, and I also enjoyed not getting it. And this is, I think, a quality of people who are called to be academics, is they enjoy the struggle. They enjoy the work. They enjoy figuring things out. They enjoy the pursuit, the academic pursuit of the subject. And that just kind of evolved, for which I thought I could actually make a career of it. But the actual making a career was not an easy thing.
Yeah.
No, not an easy thing at all.
True. there's a controversial question like between like our peers, right? So they say university education. Some people say like university education is not important, while others say it is really important. It is vital in your life, like the vital part of your life. What do you think about that? Do you think university education is really important?
For many people, yes. For all people, no. I don't find myself making sort of general statements about for all, for
Yeah.
everybody, every.
Well, like my friends from Uzbekistan, right? So they want to be a businessman. They basically like I talked to them when they said like I said, what do you want to do in the future? They said I want to make money, and so it's certainly a business sphere, right? So business field that they want to go, but like I was arguing with them that they need education. Even they want to do a business in the future, right? So they need some kind of like, for example, in our business class right now, I'm taking business class and we're learning like balance sheets and like income statements, right? At least the business person should know about that. And if you build a company, right? So there will be like many kind of things happening, like accounting and managers. So I think you certainly need to know about all of that, like concepts and like terminologies, I guess. What do you think
I
about
would
that
imagine.
for business people,
I would
especially?
also argue, in what way could earning an undergraduate degree hurt?
Yeah.
If a person is thinking they want to be, quote unquote, a business person, and I would be the last person to say I really understand the consequences of that. That is one thing I sort of recognize advancing in my career is being more aware of what I just don't know. And I've often deferred to that, in our lectures. I said, all of you would know more economics than I would. You know, more savvy. The long list of things that you know about compared to me is huge. But my conception of what it would mean to be a business person, it isn't clear to me with that kind of conception how earning an undergraduate degree or an associate degree at college, it isn't clear to me how that could be harmful. So
Yeah.
it may be benign. I would like to think it's even helpful. And why I think it's helpful, it teaches people when they are younger to deal with adversity and disappointment.
Hmm.
That
That's really true.
not everything is going to go as smooth as I might have in my mind.
Exactly.
It probably teaches people to be very self-reliant. It probably gives people opportunities to realize the nature of the world, that there are deadlines, that there is
Wow, that's actually a
disappointment, that
great
there
statement.
are one or two times every day where you have to do things where you don't actually feel like doing it,
Yeah, true.
not to mention the academic content. And I could only imagine, again, I ask, how could learning that academic content not be helpful? So perhaps the people who are saying, well, it's not useful, I would want to say, well, on what basis do you see that it's not useful? Perhaps they're arguing, well, I want to get on with business quicker, in which case I would say, look, you've got your whole lifetime. And,
Yeah.
I think that investment, aside from the effects on our economy in our country, the greatest resource, I think, I would say to our country, is its people.
Mm.
And education, without any question, is a huge investment in our most important resource. And I have a hard time understanding how that could not be the case. But I've been enlightened so many times. So it may be the people who are saying this could enlighten me on that. But I would find it hard to sort of argue against how could this be a bad thing. Some people might argue from the financial perspective.
Mm.
Higher education is expensive. I certainly get that.
Yeah.
And then one has to have the financial means to deal with that.
Do you think it might be the reason that they should not go to university, like the money, or maybe they should take loans in order to study, like to?
I can imagine in some instances this would be a determining factor for no. There are some people for whom it's just financially unfeasible to go to university. I could certainly imagine that. But I think our greater society recognizes without any question the value of higher education, and probably in no time in history that I'm aware of make it so that accessing financial backing is at least no more difficult than it was in the past, and perhaps even easier, because the people who decide these kinds of things and the greater society recognizes that higher education is supremely valuable.
Yeah, true. And I just wanted to talk about your first year at UTSC. Like, how was your first year?
How was my first year? Interesting. Yeah.
Were you struggling? Was that hard?
Yes, but I don't think struggling in the way that I see students now. A different kind of struggling. I think part of the reason for that is that at that time we had 5 years of high school. That's not because we were slower. We came to university 1 year later.
Oh, okay.
So instead of finishing in Ontario at grade 12, there was one more. And that last year of high school was very academic, and I did an extra course. So I found that all-important transition to university, it was just a smaller step.
True.
And sort of a hidden side to that is, so one might say, well, we're going to encounter challenging environment and academics at some point. And then I say, well, when do you want to encounter this? The beginning of your 4 years or the end of high school? And I think facing that academic challenge at the end of high school is preferable because one has been in that environment already. The motivation to do very, very well in grade 13 is going on to university partly, where I think the high school ending just after 4 years, I think the jump for many, many students is formidable. And I've seen that most definitely. I think the adjustment to university for many, many students is huge. But for me, I don't think it was so huge. No, my grades went a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah, that's why I want to ask. Like, how are your grades
in my first year?
Yeah.
Overall average about high 70s.
70s?
Yeah, high 70s.
4.0?
No. About 3.3.
Yeah.
And this will be of interest. So you might wonder what I was like as a high school student.
Yeah.
Right. So I graduated, my average from high school was just 80. It's just 80. All of your peers graduated with a much higher average than I did. And I see you're silent on that.
I mean, in our high school, especially like in my country, I'm from Uzbekistan, and our education system is like designed for 11 years, and we don't study for 12 or 13 years. So we just get 11 years of education. And yeah, you just certainly said the truth, because like right after I graduated, like I applied, before actually graduating, I applied to UTSC, right? So I didn't take gap years, I didn't take anything. So I just came right away after the high school. And for me, the adjustment was very difficult because like our education system, our public education system is very different. We don't like half of the material that we covered like in the lecture. You remember like it asked me like, did you guys learn this before in the high school? I was like, yeah, no. So before coming to university, I knew that I'll have some questions in my mind. Like it will be hard. And then I started preparing beforehand, like in the summer, but it was not enough, I guess. And I'm just, keeping up with the content and trying to learn and to adjust to the system. And, like my first semester was especially really hard. I found myself not sleeping. I found myself like with health issues, like bleeding in my nose. And like I took microeconomics courses, which was really hard for me, which was new concept, like totally new thing. And the educational system and the culture itself is a bit different, and the whole thing piling up, and you have like exams and everything coming up. So it was certainly a bit different and a bit difficult for me.
You're being really polite. I think it was hugely, if I can say, I think for so many of our international students, this is unlike anything in the past for them. I lived in different parts of Canada. I lived in different countries, and I did this, having completed all of my university, and I was, in every sense of the word, an adult. Not just an adult by the age of 18, but an adult in my 20s and 30s. And even those were adjustments. Without any question, I think for so many of our students, the transition to UTSC, to living in the Greater Toronto area, to some part of Canadian culture. You're to be commended that you've navigated this so well. I think this must be very difficult. Not to mention, like, family is far away.
Yeah.
Sure.
Especially during Ramadan, you know, like you have to wake up and cook yourself and eat it like in the middle of the night, especially like at 3 a.m. So you don't get any sleep, and you just go to the lectures and you feel very dizzy, and like, you know, it feels very different.
I
But
bet.
it's certainly, I love the struggle. I love the experience itself, because I know that I'm growing through that, and I want to have that because I chose this path. Like, I had definitely many opportunities. Like, I would have gone to my like local university, which was not that good. Like, the education itself is not, like, compared to Canada, like University of Toronto, it's not that good. So I just chose to I just chose to struggle and to just learn through that. So I can.
This is how we grow.
Yeah.
We don't grow by doing easy things. As a sentiment I've echoed time and time again in our lectures, as uncomfortable as it is, as difficult as it is, I don't believe we transform ourselves by doing easy things. Of course, it's great to be comfortable. I like to be comfortable when I'm sleeping. I like to have some downtime. I waste more than my share of time. But I have come to understand and witnessed in others that it is only through doing difficult things of all kinds of things that we really transform ourselves. We really grow, I believe. Yeah.
Definitely. Do you find yourself stressed out? Like, what do you do when you're stressed out? And how often do you feel stressed?
How often am I stressed? More than my fair share, I think. I work out a lot. I do a lot of physical stuff. I try to take a step back, try to understand, appreciate the bigger picture, that the stress is quite temporary.
Yeah. And like, do you take like holidays in order to like?
Not as much as I should. So I
Yeah.
am this summer. I'm not teaching this summer. This is the first summer
Wow.
in 4 years
Wow.
that I'm not teaching.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I finished a sabbatical in the summer of 2019, and I taught in the summers of 20, 21, 22, and 23, the summers. So when you teach all summer, it's not only that you don't take the summer off to pursue other things, but work just kind of continues on. And for all kinds of reasons, I've decided it's good to take the summer. So
Yeah.
after exams, I'll be like yourself, maybe. But no, you'd be working much harder than me during the summer.
So yeah, many people, like especially students at the university, like they try to find a job and they try to, you know, mix studies and work. And do you think it's important, like having experience and at the same time like studying, and after your studies, like you implement that stuff like that you learned to real life? Like, do you think it's important, and like how should people keep balance? Like, which one is more important?
Again, I don't like to, and I generally don't make statements that I think are somehow going to apply to everybody. I recognize that, students have to find what's going to work for them. Students, everybody has to find their own way. I think it can have some benefits financially, experience-wise. I think students have to be kind of reflective in sort of where they see themselves next semester, where they see themselves towards their third and fourth year of undergraduate studies.
Wow.
So, for example, like in my line of work, where there are some students whom I know, I won't cite, but I know who are thinking of graduate studies, for them to have work outside of academia, it's not clear that that would be as beneficial or as important as, for example, a student perhaps in social sciences who maybe isn't, quite as definite as to what they would like to do. Or even students, well, for students who are in our BBA program, I can only imagine that work experience is hugely important. So I more think about this as that these kinds of questions are questions that students should be thinking about over time,
Yeah.
and decide what is right for them, what is going to be beneficial for them perhaps to have discussions with other like-minded students, other students who are sort of on their same wavelength about that.
Yeah. And do you think for business people, especially for me in my case, so do you think it's important to mix studies? Because I'm actually like in dilemma right now. So I want to add work experience right now, like while I'm studying. And experience for me is certainly very important too, because like after graduation, you know that like when you apply for jobs and other like corporate jobs, you need work experience definitely. So if I add work to my studies, my GPA will be like above average, but certainly not high. And what do you think it's important? Like, do you think like it's worth mixing with the work?
Again, what I think is important is not a statement that would apply to all students, except take time to think about this. Think about it purposefully. Think about it over time as to what's important for you. Sure, it is great to have a high GPA. Sure, it is great to have all kinds of work experience, diverse work experience for students in business. But because of time, these things may not be compatible. You know, the time that one is taking perhaps to work during the summer or to have a part-time job where it's 20 hours a week. In my mind, that's a huge time commitment. And I could only imagine it could be impactful in not elevating a person's GPA, but taking it down. At the same time, I can imagine there are some BBA students for whom they deem what is most important is not work experience, is not socializing. All that they deem important is that GPA. My thinking is that it is really incumbent upon each student to sort of understand what really they want. What really is important, like what's really important for you.
Oh, so it differs for every person.
For every person.
Got it.
And I don't think this is an altogether simple thing to really dissect and understand really what it is that each student really does want. They might think they know what they want, but the tide and the currents and the influences are from all over the place.
Yeah,
To
that's what I was
distill
saying.
down as to really what you want. I think this would be my advice to students, to try and get some understanding about what is really important for you.
Yeah.
Because what's important to you, what's important to your colleague, what's important to me, these can all be different things.
Yeah.
I think, you know, partly why I've found an enormous amount of satisfaction in the life path that I have taken is I was fortunate to have some kind of understanding at an early age. I believe this is what I would want. And then I could channel my energy towards that. But if a person is unclear about what they want, even for the summer, what they want for their next selection of courses, the farther we go out, it probably is less clear as to really what we want to do. But to have some kind of idea of really what's important and then go about doing those things that help you to make that kind of awareness, this is the kind of suggestion I would make.
Yeah. That's definitely the most important part, I guess. Just knowing what you want.
Knowing what you want and doing things that are going to enable you to come to that place of awareness, really what you want.
Got it.
For two different students, this student, nothing less than 4.0 is satisfactory. Good. Now you know this is what you want. Do the things that are going to manifest that. For another student, no, I want to get as much work experience and outside information about how the real world works outside of academia. Good. If this is the thing that you want to do, then start to channel your efforts towards doing that. But two different, there are so many students. And to make a statement that applies to everybody, I would just limit it to this. Try to do the things that are going to inform you as to what you want.
Yeah.
And your likes and dislikes and tastes and aspirations, that's your business, is to find out about yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Yeah. About university, like, can you describe a perfect calculus student?
Yeah, I thought you might ask about this. So I'm going to put it back. I'm not sure what you mean by a perfect calculus student. Do you mean a calculus student who earns a perfect grade?
Yeah. Basically, like, the skill sets that he needs to have.
Like the practical matters.
Yeah.
Sure. They must be excellent in fundamental mathematics. So they must be very excellent in just arithmetic, high school algebra, manipulating. They have to be very, very good just with functions and analytic geometry. So the foundations have to be 10 out of 10, first thing. Secondly, it's not just that they want to do well, they have to be willing to put in the time to realize that goal.
Mm.
So a person has to be very dedicated beyond when it doesn't feel good. They have to be willing to, I wouldn't say sacrifice, but they have to kind of ask themselves, how much discomfort am I willing to deal with in order to be excellent? So secondly, it's just the work part, willing to work. Third, I think adopting a certain kind of humility is realizing, okay, when I don't get some things, I shouldn't expect to get them immediately, just in my subject. That kind of humility may inform, I have to ask for some help. And a lot of people are very hesitant to ask for help because of how they think they're going to appear.
Mm-hmm.
My perception when somebody asks for help is to say, I've been waiting for you. Like, where have you been? And that my disposition, as I always say in the lectures, the only dumb question is the one that a student has that they don't ask.
That's actually, I have a Telegram channel, right? Like I have more than 3,700 subscribers right now. And I actually wrote down your code in my Telegram channel that like the most dumbest question is like the one that you don't ask.
Yeah. It's the one. And you would know often, I would say, like, when you or your colleagues up front would ask a question, almost certainly 90% of your colleagues have the same question.
Yeah, I feel the same sometimes. Like my colleagues asking questions in the lectures, and then, I got the same question. Thank you for asking.
Imagine. Imagine. So, success in mathematics, the foundations have to be very, very strong. A person must really be willing to work very, very hard. Consistency, like in any other kinds of things in life, consistency is so important. And adopting both a sense of humility and kind of curiosity. A person really has to have the desire to learn mathematics, not the desire to get 4.0. It's the desire to learn.
Yeah.
And all that entails.
Exactly. And that's an interesting question. So what's the weirdest thing that happened during the lecture? Like throughout your whole career?
Well, there's no one thing that trumps everything, but I will share an experience. It was about 2 years ago. I was at UTSC, and it was at it was in May, and Math A33 had concluded. And as you might know, the beginning course for our Math A34 was A32 and A33.
Mm-hmm.
So the exam had been written, etc. I went home. Later that day, I checked my email, and there's an email. And do you know this story? I might have mentioned this story.
Oh, you mean the
yeah, that one there. Yeah, that one there.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I see this email, dear Professor Grinnell. I just wrote your MATA 33 final exam. Okay. Could you please mark my paper in a hurry? I wrote it in special blue ink that disappears.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I was so I read this again. Dear Professor Grinnell, I just wrote Math A33 final exam.
You read it again?
I read it again. I wrote it in special blue ink that disappears. Can you please mark my exam before it all vanishes? So I thought, once again, I made the mistake of thinking I had seen and heard everything. No, I was not prepared for this at all. So I remember.
What happened then?
Oh, I could hardly collect myself. I just couldn't believe what I mean. It's just like, your disposition is like, Ray, you thought you had seen everything. No.
Yeah.
Be informed once again by the genius of your students teaching you all kinds of things, sir. So I went and I was telling some of my friends discreetly, with respect and discretion, I said, look at this. And they just dropped their jaws. So this was totally hilarious.
Did you check the final?
Yeah, it was all there intact. Nothing had vanished. A couple of my colleagues or other people, they asked me about this. And that is one of the most hilarious things
that should be the most
I've ever read.
Yeah.
Another incident, this was many, many years ago. I was not teaching in this country, and I was in my office, and a student came by, and I invited them. I didn't recognize the student. The student came by and sat down and began to tell me about she was going to have a baby,
Oh,
and
okay.
and I said, wait a minute. I'm a doctor in mathematics. I'm not a physician. I'm not a physician. Oh, she was very confused about it. I said, no, I recommend that you go talk to our colleagues in health and wellness, et cetera, et cetera. They're far more knowledgeable, understanding, and experienced in these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And it just made me think it is so easy to be confused.
What was the reason behind it? Like, was she
Oh,
asking for like deferral?
No. So at the time, my DOR had DR as an abbreviation for doctor,
Yeah.
and she thought that I was a physician.
For real?
Yes, she thought that I was.
Oh my god.
She thought that I was a physician. So this is where I had to say,
Whoa.
no, doctor in academia means just experienced person in particular subject, not necessarily medicine.
Oh my god.
So I thought,
Wow,
that was,
that's interesting.
yeah, that was.
Doctor, and then she came in. She's like, "I'm having a baby."
I said,
Oh,
wait a
okay.
second here. I said, perhaps you should go and talk to my
Wow.
colleagues in health and wellness. That wasn't at this university, and it wasn't
Yeah.
even in this country, but it stands as being another interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting-
definitely. And
interesting moment.
I heard that, like, from some people that you taught Elon Musk. Is that true?
Right. I don't know, honestly. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about this when I was driving down. So I don't know definitively. The probability of this is probably at least about 30%, at least 30%. So
But still, like,
yeah, it's not
there are
zero.
chances.
So
yeah.
why I think that happens is that I believe Elon Musk was at Queen's
Yeah,
University
big
sometime between like 1986 to 1991. I think he was there at that period for just a semester or just 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there as a graduate student, and I was teaching for 4 of those 5 years. And I did teach mathematics for business students, mathematics for economics, using an earlier version of our textbook.
Wow.
Actually, yeah, I used about the 2nd edition. So this is a good while. We were all much younger, right? So that was a time. So, so he was there sometime during that period. I was teaching there. He did do an economics math course. So there were these kinds of check marks. So it makes me think, the answer is not no, that I didn't teach him definitively.
Yeah.
So
Do you think he remembers you if you taught him? Like, whenever we go up to, hopefully we'll have a podcast with Elon Musk.
do you? The following is not happening. No person of any kind of note is having a cup of coffee with somebody somewhere and said, "Gee whiz, I hear you got taught by Raymond Grinnell." This is not happening. No, definitely not. No, I cannot imagine for the life of me. And even if it is the case that he was there. But no, other people have asked me about that, and I've kind of explained it in the same terms. I said, yeah, there is a possibility, and I think it's at least a 30% chance or more that happened, but I don't remember.
But like, how about like other students? For example, like at UTSC especially, we have like so many students who are like the children of famous people. Like, have you seen anyone like before, like at UTSC? Like, have you taught?
Almost certainly, but not surprisingly, I would not know of their attachment to famous people. I'm surprisingly naive that way. Partly it's my own disposition, partly it's I don't typically sort of involve myself in sort of pop culture, media culture, and that's just not for me. And what I regard as being famous and what you and your cohort and students do, these are probably not the same. Okay. So yeah, it could be the case that there are quote unquote famous people for whom their son or their daughter has taken a course that I've taught. But I just don't know.
Yeah.
One instance though, can I share?
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. So one of my favorite activities I've done over my lifetime is running. Maybe you heard about that?
Yeah, I heard about running.
And one of my famous all-time great sporting heroes. It turns out, a couple of years ago, I found out about this. It turns out that one of his daughters goes to school here. And I found this out during COVID. So, during COVID, and I was teaching, and I would look on my screen, and I would see all of these icons as students. And then sometimes students would stay afterwards, and there'd be a Q&A session and so forth. And one student stayed after, and I recognized the student's last name. And I said, your last name is also shared by one of my great sporting heroes. And I get an email back, and she said, yes, that's my dad.
Oh, my God.
And then later on, I had an opportunity to meet her, and she actually brought a signed book about her dad.
Wow.
And that was
Wow, that's
when,
actually...
when I hold this thing, I can't believe it.
Wow. That should be interesting. Teaching, teaching students or like...
Yeah, and he even signed it in his name, and he put professor and whatnot. But I haven't seen that student for a year or so, but... How do you say search them up? I should search them up and just cross paths and say you came up in a nice conversation and see how she's doing.
Do you use social media? Instagram?
No.
TikTok? Never?
I know it exists, but I often say talk tick, right?
Yeah, that's...
I just do that. 2 lectures ago. Yeah, this is just to let you know. I do know what that is. I mean, I have a 17-year-old. But no, I don't. I don't do that, and I mean, I have all kinds of social groups.
Yeah. So you don't use social media to interact with people.
No, I interact with people this way. I really do interact with people.
That's actually great. Yeah. And I like the night before. Interesting question. The night before, we were searching for your social media profile, right? On Instagram, on every social media platform, we found out that you have a LinkedIn profile, but you have 0 followers. And you only have like few activities. I'm like, and my friend who actually helped me to search out everything, and he said, "Yo, how did he get a job if he doesn't have a LinkedIn account? Because like in this day and age, like without LinkedIn account, like possibly 100% of like employees look at your LinkedIn account, and that's what they do in academic like advising center. Like they look to your profile, they look to your resume, and they tailor it. Like, do you use LinkedIn or like, no? Yeah. At that time, I guess there was no like LinkedIn.
Indeed. And this is like a oh my gosh moment for so many students is to imagine, our world at UTSC or our world without that.
Yeah.
And some students have said like, how did you do it? How did you earn a degree and do well? I said, well, it is true that we did do it. And this is a point of consistent thinking to me is, that reality, the social media reality, how it affects my son, how it interacts with your lives.
Do you let them use the social media?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, my son's, he's very savvy, and he's very quick to point out that his dad knows nothing about it. I said, well, at least I know that I know nothing about it. I said, wait until you become aware of some things that you don't know. That might just happen, maybe, because maybe you might be thinking, all kinds of things, which you do. No, I prefer
staying in touch with people.
Yeah, I prefer this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see you.
It's definitely the best way, like compared to social media, I guess.
Tell me why.
Because like you have interaction, right? Especially I'm studying marketing. When you interact with people, especially online sales and the offline sales, is definitely different worlds. Like when you go offline and talk to people, the chances of selling your product is higher because like you have interaction, you talk to people, you see their emotions. But when online talking to people, like especially selling your product, it's really, really hard. And definitely like offline interaction is really, really important, I guess. And in social media, people like type and they often find themselves like writing like nonsense or maybe like writing the things that they didn't really want to write. So yeah, sometimes they regret, sometimes they don't know. So I definitely would say like offline interaction is better.
I have no doubt at all. Social media, instant communication. You might have heard of this thing called email.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how you and I connected.
How we connected.
By the way, there's no doubt this is not going away. It's going to get more. And it has an absolutely essential place in most people's lives. I get that, and I certainly acknowledge that, both professionally and socially, etc. However, I do think its impact, your generation, younger generation, and even a little older generation, is undeniable. And I don't think that impact in our world and all kinds of other aspects of socialization in human lives, I don't think this impact is particularly good.
Yeah. And like honestly, social media is going crazy right now. Like, have you seen the movie called Social Dilemma?
No.
I would really, really recommend you to watch that, because it's all about like emails and people who, it's a documentary film, like about like the people who actually work as a CEO or director at Facebook, at Instagram and Google, like Gmail. And they talk about like how they made people to use often to open up their emails too often, like during the day, like 200 times, 300 times. And then especially like, definitely social media is not like, right now it's not used for like, mostly used for interaction, for like texting people, for asking questions. Like most times, like we use like social media, Instagram, to just scroll and see like videos and just, you know, to get that dopamine hit. And it's
Sure.
definitely becoming like the very widespread addiction, and people are like actually teaching courses about that, like how to cure social media addiction.
I can only imagine. A point of thought on that, because we're up to final exam season.
Yeah.
I just want to remind you too that I'm still your professor, by the way, even though we're going to shake hands and move on, maybe in a different way than we would have if it weren't for your insight and just good grace to house this. I mean, we may have a different rapport only because of this. It's like the other guy that I did the podcast with. Just a point of thought on that. So for an awful lot of students, aside from when they're sleeping, you know, they're on their devices a lot, but can't be during right of final exams. And all kinds of students have 3, 4, 5, 6 final exams, for which case they have to sit by themselves without their device for 3 hours. And I wonder to what extent, you know, that they are psychologically, emotionally able to do this, because there is no other sort of 3-hour break when somebody is awake for which they do this on an ongoing basis. And I think this does actually impact students' ability to do well. It's that kind of isolation from their device that is imposed by our institution.
Yeah. And like, what did you use if you didn't use social media, like at your times, like during university? What did you guys do, like during university? Like, you didn't use social media too much. Like, there should be something that you like spent some time with your friends.
Social media didn't exist.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I finished being an undergraduate here in 85. So you're doing the math. You know, your parents didn't know each other. They probably didn't know each other. It's 39 years ago. So
my parents actually were born at that time.
Thank you for that, sir. I appreciate us doing life math together. Thanks for that. But I brought it up. So at that time, email existed very primitive.
Mm.
That's it. Most phones were attached to a wall.
Yeah.
There were some phones for which you would plug the cord in and you could carry it, 2 or 3 meters away. I don't remember ever seeing a phone that, like a cordless phone that you can buy at a place that I can't mention. But yeah, cell phones that I saw didn't exist, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And
life was certainly better, right?
Not clear. Is different.
It's different.
I wouldn't say better.
Like, you didn't have to cure addiction, definitely, right? You didn't have.
But you had to deal with other things.
Mm.
You had to deal with uncertainty more.
Oh.
You had to deal with sort of creating some kind of reality in your own mind, because you couldn't correlate that reality with your friend who's over here, for which you can Instagram or text.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to have instant communication, it does have some benefits. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
There were some downsides. I mean, the isolation part. You would go home, and the only way you would sort of communicate with somebody is you get on the phone and you talk to them on the phone. Whether that's good or bad, not clear. But data seems to suggest that the consequences of this, particularly, say, in people under 30, are not good. But this is what the data, and my own observations of that particularly student academic performance and overall student health, these are some things that history has allowed me to sort of weigh in on and see, like 20 years of time at UTSC.
Yeah.
So there's goodness and badness, but my observations and what I have seen suggests it's not so simple.
Yeah. And nowadays, like people, especially in social media, like there are so many videos like that, like encourage you to chase money and to think only about money, like monetary possessions, right? About like having cars, having mansions. Like, have you had that thought like in your mind before, like while you're studying or maybe like while you're teaching? Like, like the actual question is like, have you thought about buying a Ferrari or like supercars?
No, I haven't thought of it for myself. It's not. I think my son does. Yeah, I mean he's 17. He's not driving, but he will be soon. And sometimes he says, "Yeah, I'd like to have that kind of car, etc." My truck is 11 years old and it's showing its age a bit, so I often discuss with him, will my next vehicle be a truck? In fact, we were talking about that this morning. Or will I want a car? I don't equate success with those things.
Oh, that's really...
I don't. Like success, those things, they don't mean the same.
When I came here, before coming here actually to university, I was only thinking about that time, like the money and the mansion. I thought like success is all about like having money and having like good car, having good mansion, and talking to people, especially like who are professionals in their field, and like listening to many documentaries, like watching many movies, right, about famous people, especially Elon Musk, or maybe reading his book. I just realized that like money is definitely like for at least for famous people, Muhammad Ali, for example, or Elon Musk, Mike Tyson. I saw Mike Tyson's interview when he was saying like he looked at his belts and everything. He said like it's crap. I was like so shocked because like it's his whole career and his whole life, and he said it's crap, and it's definitely not the thing that we need to chase. And I think knowledge is the thing that we need to learn, and especially in our religion, it's encouraged to learn like throughout your whole life. So you don't you never have to stop like learning during your life.
I think that guide for living could be stated as being pretty universal, independent of any particular religion, independent of any particular culture.
Yeah.
And I think the reason for this is that the indisputable fact that nothing stays the same. It's not because of the second law of thermodynamics. Things may stay similar for a good while, but my particular sort of philosophical bent on things is that nothing stays the same. And we fulfill ourselves by growing. And, sort of trying to understand those things that fill you up.
Yeah. I look at education like the thing that cannot be taken from you. For example, your money, your monetary cars or everything can be taken in just a second, like from with the government.
Sure.
And like, or maybe like you crash the car and it's gone. Like the whole life you spent is gone, like in a second. But the knowledge and experience is not like, it never goes. Like nobody can take away like your knowledge unless they take away your brain or.
Another thing I think that is about as permanent as anything I will encounter is the people you might affect. The opportunity to affect people in a good way. And that is something I've always taken. If I could use the word as sort of sacred, I use that word carefully. But certainly a defining property of my work. It's the opportunity to affect people like yourselves at such an important time in your life, and a very short time, because most of your life you will spend not being a student.
Yeah.
The vast majority, particularly for students in our BBA program, but most students, not to be fatalistic, but this is probably your last formal education for most students. Not all, but I would say 9 out of 10 students will not go on to graduate work. For goodness sakes, after 16 years of formal education, by the time you're 22, most students, and quite rightly, have said, I've had enough. There's a big world out there. I want to go engage with it and make my mark, make my contributions, make my life, and make a life for other people. So my kind of thinking about this is that, the time that you and I have to work together, the time that you and I have to cross paths, in your life, in my life, it's so short. It's like this. And the time of life that you're in very real ways, there is no other time like this. You're approaching your peak of physical health. The world is saying to you, you're not with your parents. You're sort of operating as free agents. You come to realize that the world will really, really pay attention to you. Like, it is only because of you is why I'm here. And if somebody does not internalize this deeply, then I think they should. The only reason I have a job here is because of you and your colleagues to come and your past colleagues. So you have to embrace that deeply. So I think, like, the opportunity to contribute to your goodness during this very short period of time and at such a crucial period of time in your life, if you are asking what makes for fulfillment, I've just answered it.
Yeah.
It is arguable, and not to be too sentimental about it, but that aside from parents and family, teachers have an opportunity to be very impactful. Your teachers in the past almost certainly would, and the evidence of that is the fact that you're here.
Yeah.
And I've often said this about a hallmark of a good lecture. It's not the clarity, it's not the funny things he says, it's not that. It's that at the end of the lecture, you want to go do some more. You want to go and invest in yourself some more afterwards. I've often thought this is a good measure of a good lecture, a good course. I want more. So when I think of fulfillment, I take this part very seriously. It's the opportunity,
Impact people. It's like
to interact with you guys at this precious time in your life, because it goes like that. And that's something I can say, being 40 years your senior, on no uncertain terms. And your parents would say the same. And senior people in your life would say the same. And senior of my colleagues would say the same. This time is not forever. Yeah. And the opportunity to sort of be in this time of your life, oh my gosh.
Wow, that's a privilege.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Talking about contributions, like, were there any students who actually succeeded after like graduation and they came back to thank you? Like,
yes. Yes.
Like, what's the percentage of those students like?
Oh, I don't know of a number.
But they're like,
But
it's
certainly
definitely,
such students do exist.
yeah.
And it's interesting when that happens, because I understand, I think I understand their gratitude, because in a similar way, I extend the same gratitude to them. Like, thank you for letting me be a part of, like, your first year experience here, away from your parents. And then for students who complete a degree in mathematics, like, this is so close to my life. I've invested my whole working life, and somebody wants to do this.
Wow.
Somebody wants to go on to do graduate work. So they're doing something that is very meaningful in my life. But the most meaningful thing, and this happens all the time, is when there's students who's gone on in my subject, but not necessarily in my subject, for which on no uncertain terms, they've gone way beyond what I've done.
Wow.
That is very precious.
Wow.
When they've gone like way beyond what I've done.
Wow.
And this is, I've seen this happen many, many times where I think, you know, I sort of knew as soon as I met you that you would surpass not only me, that's not saying very much, but you would even surpass yourself. Like you would even go way beyond what you thought you
It's
could
actually a great feeling because I felt that too. So I tutor students, especially from my country, to apply to universities because our education system is not like does not support any like counseling and anything, right? So I do counseling for students. And seeing those students, like especially my student who got into UTSC and who got admissions for Mississauga as an international, as you know, for international students, it's very, very difficult. And people dream about it and spend their whole 16 years of life to just get into university. And definitely being that like person who actually helped them during that time and like making them like actually like get into university, their top priority university, and being like more than that, like they got scholarship, which I didn't get, which was really great. I'm really proud of them. And this is like I understand your feeling, you know. So
I don't know if it's possible how you can attach money to that. And of course, I would like to think this is one of the life experiences of being a parent. You know, I say this. I say about my son. I said, the world isn't ready for you just yet. The things you're going to do and the people you're going to meet, the people you're going to affect, and the mark and the way that you will change in that. I said, you just wait. You just wait.
yeah,
And I think very, very big that way. So that for me, this is a huge success. Is being able to, by way of my profession and maybe by way of my disposition, is being able to be sort of in very temporary and sort of tangentially to the lives of hundreds and hundreds of students who all have so much potential. You go way, way beyond yourself. And this is, to me, this is huge.
yeah,
And not especially in my subject, but my subject has a special place because it's that part of academia I know best. You know, at least I'm beginning to know it. Starting to know it.
What's the thing that you're most proud of?
Most proud?
The most proud of, yeah.
Oh, my son, of course.
Hmm?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He is, as I always say, he's a much, much better version of my former self. And
Wow,
he'll be a much better version of me now, too. I mean, we're, this will cause you to sit down. So when he came along, I was 44. So we often talk about that. Like he says to me, Dad, when I'm your age, I say, I hope you can keep up. That's what I say to him.
Yeah. What was your first job?
The job of any substance, like not just a 2-week job, but job of any substance. It was hard labor, physical labor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I worked in Richmond Hill at a place called York Block. It was on Yonge Street, just north of 16th Avenue, where Hillcrest Mall is still. And my father was in that industry, concrete, and could help me get a summer job there. And it was moving cement blocks around, fixing pallets, heavy labor.
Did you find it like exciting, or maybe like
No.
did you find it
Nothing exciting about that.
no, like
I mean, the guy that I
like it?
worked with, that was kind of cool for a while. I mean, it paid my way through university. In the beginning, it kind of hurt like crazy, your body and that, but you got used to it. And it was great when it was done.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the summer, and it was done, and I had money to pay for tuition. Then it was great. It also informed me what I do not want to do.
Exactly, that's what I was saying. So
the
some people
cerebral part. No, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, some people like doing hard labor, they realize that they actually need to study. They actually need.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, that's
Imagine that.
yeah.
Yeah, it certainly. And I saw the effect of this in some of my, senior workmates, and I thought, oh, geez, no, I didn't want to. I couldn't see myself doing that.
Yeah, I understand that.
I did that for 5 summers, actually, in
Mm?
the late 70s and early 80s. Yeah, it was a good experience. It's good on your body.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it was probably impactful as to why I'm bigger on the inside than the outside.
There's talking about like physical appearance and like going like training. So you said you are training. You mostly run, and you go to the gym.
No, actually, right now I'm mostly lifting. I've had a layoff from running, and I didn't bike during the winter, but I'm getting back to running. And the getting back to running, after having done this for a long time, always starts with a lot of walking. And I advise this to anybody that wants to run seriously, is begin by walking. It's a gentle introduction, and it confers a lot of benefits that can get you into running. It also prepares you psychologically just to be on your feet for an hour. I lift, and I will run this summer, and I'll ride. So those are my 3 sports: lifting, running, and riding.
And yeah, you said like you worked out with your student. How does that feel?
Oh, right. Did I see him yesterday? What today's Wednesday?
Today is
Wednesday. So he was there Monday night. So I was working out at my gym Monday night
with the student,
and said student walked in, and that student is also on campus.
Oh,
yeah, we cross paths on campus sometimes, and that's an interesting experience. There's at least 2 students, 2 of your senior colleagues. One is in first year, but he's not in business. They're 2 guys. And the other is in his 4th year. He's just finishing. And they both work out at my gym. And so for the older student, I sort of very tangentially sort of knew them. And I taught them Math A32 and A33.
wow.
And then one day, I think it was during COVID, I'm in the gym. Everything had opened up. And this guy walks up and he says, "You're my prof." So we kind of went beyond that, which people do.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what it's like when you meet somebody the first time. There's all of that, etc.
Yeah.
Not unlike what happened at the start of our podcast. You and I will all be different as a result of this podcast.
Yeah.
And same thing for that student, because we've had interactions outside. I think more awareness for him, like this is just another guy trying to work out.
Yeah. Do you ask him to spot you?
I could, and he's really strong.
Really?
And I mean, I've seen him at more peak of strength than he's had to back off a bit just because of school and so on. But he's been very dedicated to lifting.
Wow.
Very, very strong guy. And he's a very, very nice guy. I always enjoy seeing him. But we just shake hands. I'll say, "How's it going?" He'll say, "Hi, Ray, how's things? What are you doing tonight in the gym?" And we chat a little bit. And then he goes and does his thing. I do my thing. Sometimes when it's time to go, I'll say, "See you at school," whatnot. Or he might not. And that's an interesting part of his education.
Yeah.
It's that, people such as I, like people such as you, we have lives outside of here.
Yeah, I want to work out with my professor too.
Cool. I mean, it's just as, another situation that happened similar to that. The first concert I took my son to, we're sitting there waiting for the band to come down, and a couple of students walk, and "Oh my gosh, Professor Grinnell, it's you!" And a couple of your senior colleagues were also at that concert, and they just couldn't believe it. And I was there with my son and whatnot. And I think this is an interesting part of sort of social awareness and education for our students, in that, while we have a certain kind of professional role in their life at the university, at least as far as this person goes, just like everybody else. I wear jeans and a t-shirt to work. I like to lift.
What's your bench press? The maximum.
210.
210?
Yeah.
Wow.
210.
Oh my god. This is basically 2 plates?
Almost. 2 plates is 225.
Yeah.
So it's 210. But I haven't been able to do that for a little while. That was...
You're 60 and you lift 210?
I was 60 at that time.
Oh my god. That's...
But you could all ascend to that quickly. Yeah. I mean, at late teens, early 20s, that's a 6-month job for you.
How long you been working out?
Seriously, let me see here. Seriously, 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah, 4 years.
So you just started 4 years ago?
It started seriously. When COVID was very bad, May of 2020, and I was kind of injured from running, and to sort of cope with that things, I kind of got my son. I said, let's start to lift.
You go with your son?
I used to.
Oh,
And that's an interesting discussion too. But so about 4 years, but I've kind of been lifting all of my life, but not for strength, just to support running.
wow.
But I found in getting older that I really enjoy lifting. Its benefits are absolutely indisputable.
Do you like see any effects, like especially when you're like old? The people who are at your age, like they don't usually move. They don't just go work out or maybe run.
True, very true, very 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 true. This is one of the reasons I work out. It's seeing the effect of hard, consistent. I don't mean crushing, but I mean hard, thorough physical training, consistent physical training on people who are my senior. Like I have a close colleague who's 74. Yesterday I was chatting with a guy who was 76. One of my close gym pals, he's 82. He is a former gym teacher. And, often when I lift in the morning, I do the same kind of stuff. I mean, I have one day that's back and biceps. I have chest and triceps.
Oh, we'll have the same.
There you go. I have 4 routines that I cycle through. I don't do core as much as I should. I do legs every 4 times. And, one of the things I like to lift in the morning is that there's more people who are older than me. So I think that's what I can become.
Older than you?
No, there's people there in their 70s.
Wow, that's
not a lot, but there would be 15 or 20 people there who are in their 70s and so on, where I go. But I also like to go in the evening because then I see people more your contemporaries, and then I think that's what I can become. So I kind of do that from both sides. But now one of the things I have really come into enjoy is lifting. But I may have a DNA disposition to that too.
How about like muscle growth and anything? Like, is it easy for you?
You tell me. No.
Before, I thought you were like in the first.
I thought I was 70.
No, definitely not.
Yeah,
like 30s, like 35.
No,
like my father's age.
I think you're being. Too gratuitous there. It has changed me, like it would for anybody who lives.
Definitely.
It builds strength. It builds awareness in what your body can do. It builds confidence in the thought of what your body might be able to do if you apply yourself and you're dedicated and disciplined. It affects your head. You have to enact
stress.
It relieves stress. You have to enact discipline. You have to invest in yourself. And I think for people who do sports consistently and it's a part of their life, it is then a part of your life. It's an activity that is only good. Not necessarily about lifting, but just sports in general. I mean, I've been athletic essentially all of my life. And my son too. He's very big in a few sports too.
Yeah. Do you take any substances like pre-workouts or maybe like protein shakes?
No, I'm pretty simple that way. I try to be pretty mindful with protein. But I love a burger.
Everyone loves a burger.
Cheers, brother. Cheers. I do. I love burgers. I eat too much chocolate. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do any substances. But I used to have sweetener in my coffee, which is bad news. I mean, the long list of things I do that are not good for me, it's longer than your list. I can assure you. But we try to get better.
Have you tried to do no sugar diet before?
Yeah.
How went?
It was okay. Yeah.
Did you like it?
I try to sort of be mindful about sugar and just other things. I mean, not to go overboard, but to try and understand. If I want to improve physically, if I want to maintain my health, going forward, as it were, this is a simple thing to do.
Yeah.
No, this is an easy thing to do, but it's not simple. To be aware of these things is easy. To actually carrying them out, it's like studying for our exam. What it is that you have to do, the things we have to do, that's easy.
Mhm.
The actual doing it, that's not so easy.
Yeah. True.
As you know, everybody knows what they're supposed to do as a student. The question is that we actually do what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. Were there times when you felt like giving up?
Oh yeah,
Hmm?
yeah. Particularly
What did you do at that time?
during the time I was doing my doctorate. Yeah, it was not clear that I could finish.
Mm.
And the reason was, partly things in my personal life, but partly I just couldn't make progress in mathematics.
Mm.
And I mean, the personal stuff, I thought this is temporary, as much as I could in my 20s to have that perspective. This is temporary. I mean, Ray, your life's going to go on. The sun's going to come up, etc. But mathematically speaking, I just tried to expand my ability to make progress.
Mm-hmm.
And with enough time and enough,
So you had that dedication?
I just tried to take a position of being relentless.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it was just up to me to decide, take this path of not stopping, or let the thought take over my head, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just chose another path.
Yeah.
But not easy.
Definitely.
And there were some times in my professional career when I thought I can't continue on in academia because it was very hard to get work and.
Yeah. So we're almost done with the questions, but we have only like 4 or 5 questions that are like short answer questions.
Go for it.
So, how do you want to be remembered?
How do I want to be remembered? I don't have a particular sort of defining set of characteristics. Maybe open.
Mm-hmm. In terms of career, for example, Muhammad Ali wanted to be like remembered as the greatest boxer, right? So do you want to be remembered as a greatest like mathematician or?
No, this is impossible. Perhaps as a professor who was really invested in student success in the realm of my teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. What's your favorite mathematical concept? Derivatives?
No, with all due respect. Probably the concept of a thing called a set.
A set?
Yeah, with the brackets, a set.
Oh, yeah.
That thing. And I actually teach a course in that.
Teach a course?
MATD09.
D-level course?
D-level
Oh,
course.
my God.
Yeah.
It should be very hard.
It is interesting. It is interesting. And it's a very nice example of a part of mathematics that is axiomatic, meaning that there's a few rules for which it's like playing chess or playing Go or playing boxing or cricket, whatever, that it is full of surprises. And it deals with a topic of fascination to so many people, and that's the infinite. Mm-hmm. It deals with all kinds of infinities. So it has the ingredients. It's also very ubiquitous. Every part of mathematics uses sets. But set theory, it also has kind of a subject onto itself, which is fascinating. So that might be my favorite area of mathematics.
Got it. Yeah. Who's your favorite professor?
My favorite professor of all time?
Yeah.
Oh, dear. I don't know if I would just have one. But some were a professor that taught me my first 3 years of university here. He's now long deceased, but he was very, very influential. My doctoral supervisor, Ole Nilsson, Ole's about 82 now. He's long retired, but he was very, very
82.
Influential. And also professor that I met at a conference who's now deceased, but I read as an undergraduate and graduate student some of his well-known textbooks, and having lunch with him in a Caribbean island at a conference, that was pretty cool.
Wow.
That was pretty cool.
Okay. Next question. $10 million or your math skills?
I'm sorry, what's the question? That's an assertion.
So the person is offering you $10 million.
Yeah.
Would you rather choose $10 million or your mathematical knowledge or like skills?
Meaning, so when you say or, it's not like the following. Would you like milk or sugar in your coffee, which could entail both? You're meaning exclusive.
No, I mean
one but not the other.
Yeah, would you change
like
your
trade.
knowledge? Yeah, would you trade your knowledge for like $10 million?
Right now, in my life right now,
Yeah.
I would be tempted.
But how about like in your 20s or 20, like after graduating, like master's degree or PhD?
A PhD, I would be tempted. $10 million is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it certainly was 30 years ago.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had said 100,000, no. Like, you say to me right now, like $1 million trade, no. But $10 million is an order of magnitude. And I'm quickly thinking
10 years of work at university or maybe like...
a bit more, sir. More than a career of earnings. Yeah.
Okay.
In my career, I won't earn $10 million. So more than a career of earnings.
Wow.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have sort of a definitive answer, but it's an interesting. I'd be tempted. in this particular realm, temptation is not an altogether bad thing. I'd be tempted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When are you planning to retire?
I'm not.
You're not planning to? Wow.
No.
It's actually great. So this means like you love your job and you want to do it like for the whole life, your whole life.
In fact, I often do comment on that, both by invitation.
I heard in the lecture. Sorry for disturbing. I heard in the lecture like when you actually said like without a question, like nobody asked you a question, and you said like I will never retire.
I thought that would catch your attention.
Yeah.
So that's not without considerable thought. I mean, this year I'll be 62, and normal retirement at university, normal retirement is at 65. And on occasion, I get emails that offer you the opportunity to sit on a workshop, to think about phased retirement. And many of my colleagues are retiring or have retired, etc. It's a natural kind of question because of our lifespan.
Yeah.
But I do love my work. I don't always like it, but I do love it. I don't always like it. And the distinction I make is there's some aspects of the work that they don't really hold a fascination innately. There's no innate fascination, so I kind of have to create goodness for it. And I could do that better. I have not yet
thought about it.
No, what I was going to say is I can't imagine myself being done with teaching. I can't bring myself to the mind of thinking, no more opportunities like this, no more opportunities to work with students in a lecture environment, no more opportunities to be a part of our community and all that entails. I just can't bring my head to that. I leave open the possibility that in 7 or 8 years, I might decide differently. I mean, I reiterated a few times. A hallmark of human existence is that nothing is permanent. Even we're not permanent. And so thinking of not retiring, that's my disposition now, and there's certain consequences of that. I also recognize what the literature says about not retiring and the goodness. And my income is great. The social connectivity, the routine of it. I still am absolutely fascinated with my subject. There's many more things I would like to do in my subject. And of course, and perhaps most importantly, is that, it's the teaching part. The teaching part is becoming interesting because students do not get older, they graduate. But I do. And this is one of the reasons why, for example, your TAs are so effective, because they're much, much closer in age and history and disposition. So I have to work a little bit to remind myself, Ray, it's not talk tick, it's TikTok. But I just do that to put a smile on your face. I know what TikTok is. more than I allude to. But I realize, sure, to be saying at 85 I'm not going to retire, that might be inaccurate. But this is 20 some odd years away. But right now I have no plan to retire.
Got it.
All.
Yeah. And the last question is like, what's your advice for like youngsters, especially for like at our age, like who are studying at university? Like, what would you do, for example, if you were at that age?
Number one is try to understand both, day to day in your courses, in your life. Try to understand things that you want. Try to understand things that are important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, be willing and desirous of doing those things that are going to let you realize what it is that you want. Don't be discouraged when things are very difficult, because at university almost certainly they will be. Not just difficult subjects, but difficult life stuff, because that's not permanent. Take advantage of this time in your life. Don't miss doing things that you think may be valuable or interesting to you. And I mean that socially, I mean that academically, in your physical life, whatever. And this comes back to trying to understand what it is that you want, what it is that sets you on fire, what it is that fills you up, and aligning your life in every way possible to move towards those things that fill you up, that set you on fire. And be very motivated towards those things that you really do enjoy, or those things that really do fulfill you. Not to be discouraged when, not always things go how you want. I mean, this is a thing called life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my broad thinking about what to do. I kind of went through my undergraduate experience not as broad as I should have been. I basically studied math, and I did a little bit of philosophy, and that's it. That singular effort has been, of course, contributory towards having an amazing career. But at the same time, I do wonder if there had been alternate realities I could have engaged in, certainly more financially, and maybe a broader person. But I don't think so. I think if somebody said, do you have any regrets? Did you choose wisely? Did you follow your heart? Did you follow the path that you wanted? I say most definitely. I mean, where else can you come to work in jeans and a T-shirt and work and impact and influence? I think these things are, aside from wearing jeans to work, but for me, these things are so important.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. We have no questions. If you want to talk about anything or maybe advices, like you can say anything. So this is the
No,
end.
I think I've said all that I said, except my thanks. I mean, both of you. This has been very, very cool. I had a sense it would be. I think we're all made different, because as three fellas, during busy exam time, we have a chance to come in and talk about important things, and they are important things.
Yeah, exactly. So we wanted to do before or after, and knowing that you will be like not working during the summer, so we just decided to do it like during the exam season. So
thank you.
Thank you
for the opportunity, and
thank you
just
for
to meet you guys. And I mean, it's different than the way that we engaged in the lectures.
Definitely.
And if it's been interesting for you, if it's been impactful, it helps you to do all good things towards focusing for your exams. It certainly does. I have to make exams. And so, like, your colleagues are going to thank you for this, because I'm going to be in a real good mood, and so it's going to shine on your exam, which is only a good. So you can take credit for that.
And definitely, like most students will be watching this, hopefully, and like future students of U of T, and they'll be like tempted to take your courses, and they'll definitely watch this video and get to know more about yourself.
Well, thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, and definitely this will be useful, because The only reason, like the sole reason that I started doing podcasts for like with UTSC people, because like before coming here as an international student, like you'll definitely be tempted to come to university, especially when the tuition fee is very high, and you definitely want to search up like what you're paying for, right?
Yes.
So when you search it up on Google, you find like not too much information except the website.
Yeah.
And when you search it up on social media, you can definitely see like pictures. But on YouTube, when I searched up on YouTube, like there was literally nothing about UTSC. Like literally, like I've seen the official website. It's
Right.
basically like advertisement. Like
Yeah,
they're posting
I-
advertisements and other stuff.
I get that.
Like nothing about internal life at UTSC. Like no one really talks about like how the studies are going. Like and I just started doing it for people who are actually coming as an international student, or maybe like who are actually interested about UTSC.
How has that been for you?
Definitely,
the experience of doing that.
it's-
How do you think it's been received?
Yeah, it's very useful for me, honestly, talking to people who have achieved actually something else in their life, and sometimes I reassure myself asking questions from people, especially at your age, like like people who are older than me. I ask questions because you definitely know that like at our age, especially when we're 18 or 19, like we have some confusion about the future, and we feel pessimistic sometimes, right? So when you talk to older people, you definitely get many insights and advice, and that helps me to actually find the right path, like to actually figure out like what works for me, right? And then I try to share it with other people, like so that they know like how people like actually achieved this and how they did it, the whole experience.
I like how you reiterate, underline, put in yellow highlighter, how you find your path, how you go about making decisions that are right for yourself, taking that experience, sharing how you do it with the wider community, because this might help other people who have to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You could distill this down to its simplest form, like when we have our exam for A34. Your exam paper is going to appear in front of you. You're going to sit down in a big seat, and then how you deal with that is up to you.
Yeah.
For every student, and how they go about their experience of this upcoming summer, their second year, their later years of university. Everybody has to make all kinds of decisions for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is one of the big defining features of university education, is that we are forced to make decisions, and some very substantive, for ourselves. When it is the case that you had people who are asking about the value of university education, we highlighted this earlier, is that it forces you into places for which you have to evolve. You have to make decisions that are right for you, and maybe for those people in your immediate sphere, like people who are in a small group for which you're doing a project with, somebody who is studying with you in your math course, but primarily for yourself. And I think, if nothing else, the university experience, it compels us to have to do this in so many ways constantly. And I can only imagine this is a beneficial thing in any kind of endeavor. We have to equip ourselves somehow with the tools to make good decisions and find our own ways in things.
Yeah.
And I think university, perhaps amongst other ways, but certainly time has shown that this is a very good form for doing that, making good decisions, small, daily, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I
Yep.
guess.
Thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you
gentlemen.
for
Very interesting, very